Well, ladies and gentlemen, and can I particularly acknowledge the presence of His Excellency, the Malaysian High Commissioner, and ladies and gentlemen from media, both in Australia and representing countries from around the world. I'm joined today by Martin Dolan, who's the Chief Commissioner of the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, to give you an update on the search for Malaysian Airlines flight MH370. You'll be aware that this aircraft disappeared on the 8th of March 2014 with 239 people on board, 6 of whom were Australian citizens. The fate of this aircraft and those on board, of course, has been the subject of international attention and concern for the entire world. At the request of the Malaysian government, Australia continues to lead the search effort. Since the 26th of June 2014, our attention has been primarily focused on a 60,000 square kilometre high priority search area in the southern Indian Ocean, and that's indicated on the map on the easel to my right. 2 vessels have been undertaking bathymetric survey work in that area, an Australian contracted vessel and a Chinese PLA Navy survey vessel. At the present time, they've completed about 60% of that survey work. Around 32,000 square kilometres have been mapped since April, and that work is continuing. But today I can announce the outcome of the tender process to select a prime contractor to manage the deep water search. The underwater search will aim to locate the aircraft and any evidence such as debris and flight recorders to assist the Malaysian investigation team on the disappearance of MH370. ATS has evaluated the tenders received and have selected Fugro Survey Pty Ltd as offering the best value for money technical solution to perform this complex activity. The Malaysian government have also offered equipment which will participate in that search, and of course there's a Chinese vessel already operating in that area in relation to the survey. Now, I had expected that my Malaysian counterpart, Minister Liao, would have been with me today. However, obviously his attention has been taken by the disappearance of MH17. I am anticipating that he will be in Australia later in the month, and we will have an opportunity then to talk about future arrangements in relation to the search and how it should proceed. I remain cautiously optimistic that we will locate the missing aircraft within the priority search area. This search will obviously be a challenging one. Fugro will use 2 vessels equipped with towed deep water vehicles and carrying expert personnel to undertake the search operations. The vessels will search the seafloor using side scan sonars, multi-beam echo sounders and video cameras to locate and identify the debris. Fugro is a Dutch company but has a significant Perth-based operation, and so they're familiar with the Australian operations. I can't say they're familiar with this search area because this is rather outside of the areas that have normally been surveyed or mapped, and therefore a lot of the work that has to be undertaken will be in areas, of course, new to the search team. They have the Fugro Equator is currently one of the vessels that's working on the mapping, and the Fugro Discovery is currently en route to Perth from the United Kingdom to participate in this search. Now, clearly, it's not clear how long that search will take. We would hope, obviously, to find the vessel, to find the aircraft on the first day, but it could, in fact, take a year to search the entire area, and of course, the weather conditions will have an impact on what time will be required to complete the task. This is the most prospective area. It's been chosen on the basis of the best expert advice. Now we intend to search it thoroughly and hopefully we'll find the aircraft or a debris field or traces of where the aircraft has entered into the water, so that we can provide a closure to the families involved and information to support the investigation, so that the world will know what happened that led to the fate of this particular aircraft. Now, Martin, if you'd like to add anything, otherwise I'll invite people to ask questions.
I think you've covered it fully, Deputy Prime Minister, but happy to assist in answering questions.
Are there any questions?
When you spoke to us, I think it was last month, you suggested that there may be some possibility that the mapping of the ocean floor could pick up an anomaly. Has anything shown up to date?
To date, some anomalies related to the geology of the ocean floor have shown up, which really indicate that there are going to be one or two areas that will be more challenging to search and will require a more thorough search. But that's all that's been detected to this point.
From the survey that you've done so far, can you give us an updated idea of what the topography is like? What's the seafloor like?
To the north of the orange zone, it's comparatively flat and deep, and it rises progressively towards what you can see there, that ridge, broken ridge. Mm-hmm. So from a depth of something like 4,800 metres to the north, it gets to as low as 1,500 metres to the south, and the terrain becomes more difficult. We haven't completed the mapping, so we're still discovering detailed features that we had no knowledge of, underwater volcanoes and various other things. So we're finding some surprises as we go through.
And sorry, that's 1,500 metres below sea level?
Correct.
So it rises quite steeply?
Yes, and it rises essentially to the south reasonably consistently, but with some undulation and unexpected features.
And there likely to be canyons or valleys that could hide an aircraft and make it hard to find?
Yes, and that's my point about the anomalies are really about detecting those areas that require more careful search and more detailed attention.
I think what's been discovered demonstrates why this mapping was so necessary. The ocean is not just simply flat and featureless. There's quite a lot of geological features there that will be a challenge in the search, but we needed to be identified to make it actually possible to undertake the sonar work that's going to occur from now on.
Can I ask what the contract with Fugro is worth, and just can you give us an overall picture of what the whole operation is costing and how those costs are being carved up with other governments?
Well, we've given some general figures in the past about what we've set aside of the order of in excess of $80 million, $80 to $90 million. The size of this contract will depend on how long we're in the water. If we need to spend 12 months, it'll be of the order of $52 million. But if we can find it on the first day, well, then obviously there'll still be substantial establishment costs, but it would be much less than the time taken if we take the whole year to undertake the search.
And just on, are there other governments contributing to that contract?
Well, Malaysia has, as I mentioned earlier, has indicated its intention to provide some assets, some sonar equipment and the like, to assist in the search. I would expect to discuss those sorts of issues with my Malaysian counterpart when he comes to Australia later this month.
Could Mr. Dolan explain to us how this equipment will work in layman's terms, and what it will basically see, for want of a better word?
In the simplest possible description, which is to oversimplify it, there will be towed vessels behind ships, which will deploy sonar equipment, side-scan sonar, which will give a sonar picture of the seafloor in detail, which will need to be analysed both on board the vessel and ashore in Australia. And so it's the expert attention to the data that's being picked up by the sonar is a very important part of this. And the review of the data when it's ashore is also important to make sure that we haven't missed something. But the basic technique is sonar signals turned into data and then analysed to get a picture of what's going on. Areas of particular interest, we're likely to get some video examination of as well, using the same towed vessels.
And how fast would the vessel go? Would they go side by side in a very long sweep?
We are still, and we'll have to have these discussions with our colleagues from Fugro, working out the details of the techniques to be used, which will vary depending on the topography of the ocean floor. So there's a range of possibilities. We haven't got the full detail of our search plan because we need to do that on a collaborative basis with Fugro. So there's no simple answer. Sometimes you'll have to follow the contours as they're known. There are others where it's a flat area where you can do long tows and pick up the sort of definition you need. And in some areas it's going to be so complex we'll have to do a close examination much slower. We still hope that that area can be covered within a year if we have to cover the whole area.
Just one other comment on that. This is a towed vehicle, not an autonomous one, as we were using in some of the earlier searches, which means it's also in constant contact with the vessel. So there's some instant information available.
Right, and sorry, can you give us just the dimensions of the orange block? That's the 60,000 square kilometres. Yep. Can you give us a width and a length?
Off the top of my head, I can't. It's of the order of 80 kilometres wide, and the length, therefore, is about 700 kilometres. Broad terms.
To put it into some perspective, it's about the area of the size of the state of Tasmania.
Or about half the size of Peninsular Malaysia for our Malaysian colleagues.
Has Chinese government been consulted or been coordinated when you make the selection of the contractor?
Yes, the Chinese government have been kept in the loop and informed about the discussions and their own involvement in relation to the mapping, which will continue for another couple of months. And so the Chinese government have been kept informed with what's happening.
Will Chinese cover some costs, part of costs, or not?
Well, I can't comment on that. They haven't indicated an intention to assist in that way, but obviously they'll be involved in future discussions as time goes by.
What, if any, impact has the MH370 situation had on this operation?
Well, on the water, none. We've kept the operations going as scheduled. There's been no personnel taken away from this operation to go to MH370. Clearly, Malaysian Airways and the Malaysian government have got two problems on their hand rather than one, two extraordinary circumstances, two unique occasions, and so clearly they've had to put some priority focus in dealing with the immediate issues surrounding MH370, but that has not in any way interrupted the search and the work that's being undertaken off the coast of Western Australia.
Will the Chinese expert be involved in the deep sea search, with the Fugro experts? And also, are there any kind of cooperation between the commercial companies and the Chinese side, the experts or technicians?
Well, there are two stages to this process. The first has been the mapping of the seafloor, which the Chinese have been actively involved by having a vessel present, and their data will be provided obviously to the second element of this operation, and that is the actual search for the aircraft or any remains that there might be. So that information will be helpful to the contractors, along with the information that's provided by the other vessels involved in that search.
And if I could add to that, there are Chinese technical experts that have been based in Canberra for a considerable period of time that we keep in close contact with, so that we always take account of Chinese views and keep the Chinese officials informed of what's going on.
So Is that right to understand that the Chinese experts are mainly involved in the mapping of the seafloor rather than the deep sea survey and deep sea search?
That's the arrangement we currently have with the government of China, yes.
Would the contract that you've signed cover the recovery of wreckage, or would that be a separate?
The contract is to search for, to, if possible, localise a debris field and to map and photograph the debris field. But at this stage, we haven't completed an agreement as to recovery.
How deep can the towed sonar go into the sea?
It can get pretty close to the ocean floor, to the depth necessary to get a wide enough swathe across the ocean floor. The equipment that we've agreed with our colleagues in Fugro is capable of searching the entire area that we have specified there.
The Australian involvement here is just purely about trying to find parts of the aircraft. Are you dealing with Malaysian authorities about theories at all of what might have brought the aircraft down here at all? Are we any closer to finding out what's happened there?
Well, essentially, the investigation is the responsibility of Malaysia because that is the flag that the aircraft carried. So we're obviously been assisting in that process, but that is their responsibility. They've asked us to look after this search phase, and that's the initiatives we're taking at the present time. But clearly there'll be a high level of cooperation in relation to investigation when the time comes. One would imagine that if a decision is made to recover debris, that it's very likely to be brought to shore in Australia because that's the closest place to bring it. Then decisions will have to be made about what further action needs to be taken there. Clearly the priority will be to recover the black box recorders, and it could be that sufficient information can be obtained from that sort of data and an inspection to make it unnecessary to recover debris, but those sort of issues would have to be decided on the basis of what we find when the search has achieved its objective.
Can I just ask Martin, are we any closer to nailing down theories as to why the aircraft may have come down in Australia?
That's an area, as I think I've said before, where it is a Malaysian responsibility to undertake this investigation, and the international arrangements in relation to that say Malaysians are the ones who talk about that. I'm not authorised by our Malaysian colleagues to speak on behalf of their investigation.
I appreciate it's a bit of a delicate subject at the moment, but is it likely that Australia will be left with paying that bill for this contract?
Well, the federal government has indicated right early that we are prepared to make a contribution. We see this as an international obligation, an obligation to the Australian families, but also to the families of the other passengers who are on board. And we are expecting to make a significant, and have already made a significant contribution towards the search effort, and we will do what we need to do to make sure that the search is thorough. But we are expecting that there will be a financial partnership with the Malaysians and potentially others that would assist in that cost, bearing in mind that at this stage each country has essentially borne its own costs. So the Chinese vessel is being funded by the Chinese government, the Malaysian hardware that's been involved in the process has been funded by Malaysia, and other countries, and there are probably a dozen or more of them that have contributed to this effort. They've paid their own costs.
When do you expect the deep sea search to commence?
Well, we're optimistic that it will begin in September. There's sufficient mapping already being completed for, obviously, to have places where we can start. But we expect that by the time the sonar search is able to commence, most, if not all, of the mapping will be completed. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we hope that the search is successful, As soon as possible, we remain determined to put in the maximum effort, and we look forward to working with Fugro to move to this next stage of the search so that families can get the answers they want as quickly as possible.